Now that Joel is out on his own, he finds success and Olivia rubs it in her husband's face. Malcolm always wanted his sons to amount to something, and it looks like at least one of them did, by becoming a professional piano player. Take that, old man. Then Olivia gets a telegram. She is nervous because she has never before gotten a good telegram. I only remember her getting one other telegram in the entire book, by the way. That was after her father's death. This latest telegram informs her that her younger son, her only remaining boy, has been lost in an avalanche and is presumed dead. Malcolm treats the news as though it's gibberish to him and goes on with business. Olivia is heartbroken by all the happy memories that come rushing back and now flood her with sadness. As all characters tend to do in these books, she holds the cherished keepsakes that remind her of her lost sons to her breast. That's apparently why we have breasts in the first place, so that we can hold stuff to them and weep. Malcolm refuses to attend Joel's memorial service because he doesn't want to go to all that trouble and then have Joel walk back into their lives years later and be like, ta-da! And then they've gone and had a memorial service for nothing. Olivia points out that the report they were given was quite official. About as official as a death report without a body can be, I imagine. The second tragedy does lead to Malcolm going through a metamorphosis, though. Why, it's almost like he's in a Kafka novel. This change in him is probably in large part due to John Amos's presence in the house. Malcolm turns to religion. Corrine is just a spoiled brat teen who is tired of being glum all the time and wants to get on with her life. I know it's highly unlikely she caused the avalanche in another country, but was she responsible for Mal driving off the edge of a cliff? Very suspicious that she should have gotten off that motorcycle just in time. And she seems a little too chipper for a girl who was only just recently lost both her older brothers. Her family just assumes she's being selfish, and maybe that's all it is. John tells Olivia he will speak to the girl about it at some point. Yeah, I'm sure this creep has his own motivations for speaking with his cousin's young daughter in the privacy of her room, but moving on. John comforts Malcolm by talking about God's wrath and how it is just. John tells him that, hopefully, God will wear himself out with all the smiting, and maybe soon enough they can have a little bit of peace and quiet. Olivia and Malcolm have been getting along better now that they've both found God. So it is the right time for them to receive a letter from Alicia, requesting that they please consider taking in her son Christopher, because she is dying from breast cancer. Christopher is on his way to becoming a doctor, but he will need help paying for his education. Olivia is happy to oblige. She sees it as God's will and a chance to make amends for the wrongs they have committed. Malcolm is afraid it's a slippery slope to letting in every stray child off the street. You do have to be careful whenever you open your door to your long-lost brother, that it doesn't get out of hand and a million grieving children don't follow him in. But Malcolm does finally relent. And they soon see it as a second chance after tragically losing both their sons. Malcolm is impressed with how bright Christopher is. Christopher flatters Olivia with kind words. Apparently he loved her raising cookies as a child. Oh, come on. Raising cookies? Is he being sarcastic? He puts on a serious face as he tells Olivia that he would be happy to take the place of her dead sons if she will be so kind to be like a mother to him. I hope you don't plan to go into sales, Chris. One son in exchange for two? That doesn't sound like much of a deal, but I suppose she'll take what she can get. He also tells her how much he adores young Corrine and would love to be a big brother to her. He's clearly scamming her. This boy's got ulterior motives. Olivia is touched to see the bond that quickly develops between these two beautiful, innocent teenagers over the next 4 years. John Amos suspects that there is something more going on between them behind the scenes. He sees them swimming in their underwear in the lake one day, for example, and runs to Olivia to tell her all about it. Olivia thinks John has been watching Corrine too much and reading a lot into stuff that isn't really all that significant. I agree with her in regards to the first part. John is being a creep. Then one day, shortly after Corrine's high school graduation and Chris's college graduation, Olivia gets Chris's Harvard acceptance in the mail. She goes running to find her young brother-in-law to give him the good news and discovers Corrine and Christopher in bed together, in the Swan Room. She is horrified. John Amos appears on the scene and is not as discreet as she. He throws open the door and loudly condemns the young sinners for defiling this holy house. Too late, John. This house is beyond saving. He then scolds Olivia for not listening when he tried to warn her. Olivia orders the children to come down to the library once they are properly attired. I think this is the same library where years later Chris Jr. will overhear a bit of gossip from John Amos and a maid that alerts him to the fact that his mother and grandmother have been secretly poisoning them. By the way, does anyone ever openly poison someone? That might be a bit redundant. A secret poisoning? Anywho, the library is also where Bart Sr. confronts Corrine after Kathy blasts the truth to all of the guests milling around at a Foxworth Christmas gathering 30 years later. So no good discussion ever takes place in this Foxworth home library. Olivia confronts Malcolm with what she has just discovered. Let's just say it doesn't exactly put a bounce in his step and a twinkle in his eye, and we'll leave it at that. Corrine tells her father and mother that she's in love and they intend to get married. They would be satisfied with something small and perfunctory, but she certainly wouldn't object if her parents want to throw her a big wedding, break out the cigars, and, I don't know, roast a pig in the name of love or something. Malcolm and Olivia quickly slam the door shut on that idea. Her father informs Corrine that not only is she not getting a wedding, she's also not getting a dime of his money from this day forward. He is disinheriting them both. Apparently consensual relations between his daughter and her half-uncle/secret brother is where this tyrannical patriarch draws the line. He's done some terrible things in his time, but this just about takes the cake. He's never heard of something so vulgar and profane in his entire life. Corrine and Christopher flee the house soon after, and Malcolm is so enraged that it causes him to have a stroke that very night. But he pulls through. After some time has passed, Malcolm asks Olivia to hire detectives to track down his daughter and brother to find out what those two rascals have been up to since he's seen them last. When Olivia learns they have a beautiful little boy with no noticeable deformities, she is shocked. How can it be? Corrine is pregnant again, though, and Olivia is reassured that nature will take its revenge on this second child. But it's not to be. Their daughter Kathy is perfect in every way, as are their twins, born 8 years later. A few years after the birth of the twins, Olivia gets a letter from Corrine stating that her husband Chris has tragically died in a car accident, and she is hoping they will be compassionate enough to take in her and her 4 children. Olivia is truly sad to learn what has become of Chris, because she did once love him. When she informs John of the news, he tells her that it is her duty to do God's will. She must lock the children away and make sure the evil legacy they have inherited ends with them. So Olivia agrees to let Corrine and the children come to the house. Those poor kids will be told that it's just temporary, just until the grandfather dies. That is a lie. Olivia has no intention of telling Malcolm of the children's existence. She never did tell him before when the detective revealed that Corrine and Christopher had children. But she's certainly not going to tell him now, and it's not because she's afraid that Malcolm will hate them. In fact, it's because she's afraid that he will fall in love with them, particularly the 2 beautiful little girls. Now, if that isn't a little O. Henry twist, I don't know what is. It was never about the grandfather, after all. It was Olivia and John Amos who wanted the children locked up until they were dead. And on the very last page, as the grandmother is closing the door, getting ready to lock the siblings in, she glances at the older brother and the older sister, and they're holding hands, and the brother smiles at the sister. And you can't have a brother smiling at a sister. That's just totally sus. If we've learned nothing from Corrine and Christopher, we've learned that. The grandmother will never again let anyone pull the wool over her eyes. She's gonna watch those kids like a hawk and basically accuse them of sleeping together every day, over and over and over again, until they finally just relent and do the deed. The end.